Hey, welcome back to the next episode. So this episode is going to be finishing up my time living in the van, traveling through Texas. The last thing I was sticking around in town for was one of my buddies was getting married in Austin. So that's mainly what this episode is going to be about. It's when the big snowstorm hit a couple years ago. But I don't know. So the more of these videos I edit, the more I understand like the fun, different, weird things I can do with these programs. So I might start adding in different weird sound effects and stuff, just because I don't know, it's fun and they're goofy. We'll see how it goes. Uh, anyway, but yeah, this episode, let's see. Uh, at this point in time, I just started the podcast. I was in high spirits. I had stopped smoking. I cut back a lot on smoking weed too, but I wasn't smoking any tobacco. I was just chilling and feeling pretty clear minded. And I had something to work on. I was like accepting the fact of things like that things weren't as good as they could be, and I'm gonna try to actually make them better by working on something. So I was in high spirits going to Austin. I was looking forward to going to see my buddies too, going to see some friends because they're coming down for a wedding. So I started to head to Austin to go to this wedding, and this is right when it started to freeze. And this is exactly what I tried to avoid. The way that I planned the trip was to avoid any really cold weather where it's freezing. So I would be south in the winter and north in the summer. But with this one, randomly, the huge snowstorm hit Austin about 3 years ago, and I first realized that it was dangerous when I was coming into town, and I was like driving down this hill in the van, and right ahead of me was like this, or like I was like going down the hill, and I could see in front of me I was going to be going right back up it, and at the bottom of this little hill was a little bridge, and there's another car coming from the opposite direction, and right when I was going down this hill, as soon as I hit the bottom, I hit that little bridge. I was passing that car at the same time. He hit the bottom of the hill at the same time, and as soon as I hit the bridge was frozen over. So my tires lost traction, and I started to shift axis like I wasn't facing forward anymore. And as soon as I got over the bridge, I hadn't turned enough where it didn't like throw me completely off course, but I hit the concrete and it yanked me back forward and put me back straight. My heart started racing. I was kind of frozen for that second that I was sliding without control, and that's when I realized, okay, this is serious. You need to start paying attention and realizing the roads are freezing up, and I need to find a place to stay soon because it was getting bad. The place that I found was right. I think I needed to kill 2 more days outside of Austin before the wedding, so I stayed at a KOA just outside of town, and that's when all the snow really hit. The snow and the ice and the rain and all that just started to freeze over, and it was rough.
The Eagle has landed.
These 2 nights I spent at the KOA campsite. The second night, I think it was the second night. I think it got down to like 7 or 8 degrees. I ran out of propane. Also, the campsite ran out of propane as well. They couldn't get any trucks to come fill up their tanks, so there was no propane to fill up at all. So I was sitting in the van with, I don't know, long johns and sweats and different layers there. I had like 5 jackets on. I was underneath covers. I had my candle left over that I was sitting over the top of my candle, and then my candles ran out. So all I had left to sit over the top of this little bonfire candle was the single candle I had left from going to church on Christmas. I had that single candle they give you, on Christmas. I had that left over, so I just put that in the little candle thing and lit that, and then I used that as my little heater, my little bonfire, and it was ridiculous. Like, this is the exact stuff I was trying to avoid in the van, was trying to like weather this terrible, but this was it was so ridiculous that I couldn't do anything but laugh. Like, it was just insane. Like, there's nothing I can do. I'm just gonna have to deal with this, and there's no reason to get upset or freak out about it. It's just like, how does this happen? I'm in Texas and I get hit with the hardest snowstorm ever. I mean, everybody got hit with it, not just me, but I mean, everybody. I mean, there were serious impacts because in this time, like, the power plant froze up, and Texas is disconnected from the federal power grid, so it was like they were just offline. The demand for power was obviously super high. I think over 250 people died. Some of the shelves were empty in the stores. It was pretty rough at certain points, and in order to get downtown the next day, I was like, I knew I had to leave the KOA to get downtown. All I had to do was make it there, and I had a reservation I booked online. I had a hotel down there. I was going to stay for a night or two, or maybe 3 or 4 nights. I can't remember exactly, but I start to leave the KOA. I hardly even get out of the driveway, and I get stuck on the side of the road. Not even on a bad hill. I was stuck there for probably, I don't know, an hour or so, and then Luckily, a sheriff came by and yanked me out of it with his truck and kept me on my way. I did get stuck one other time on the way down, but I was able to get my shovel out and dig myself out and continue moving. Finally made it down to the hotel down there, and they told me that my reservation was not a real reservation, and we don't actually have it because none of the employees could come down and clean the hotel rooms because of the weather. And I even offered. I was like, "Can I clean the room and I'll stay in it?" They're like, no, that's not allowed. It was like heavy COVID time, so everyone was all paranoid about that. And so I was like, "Well, can I sleep in the parking lot?" And they're like, "Well, you can sleep in the parking lot, but this is really not the best place to be doing that." I wasn't staying in a very nice hotel. I wasn't planning on staying. It was just kind of a sketchy area, and they said it's probably not wise to sleep in the car. So I hit up my buddy Tommy, who was getting married down there, and the hotel that he had, well, because everybody back home, they couldn't fly in now because all the flights were canceled. They had to end up pushing the wedding back a whole week to the next weekend to get all the, because catering couldn't make it out. The city ended up having no power and water. The only place that had power and water in the city was the hotel that he was staying at. So he was like, "Hey, dude, we'll come over and stay at this place. We got an extra spot now." So I went over there and stayed in in his hotel. Oh, there was one other thing I forgot to include. This is a funny thing that when I stayed that night in the snow at the KOA, everything froze. My contacts even froze in the case. I took them out the next morning. They were just frozen solid. My water bottle was frozen solid. Everything was frozen solid in there. I even let my contacts, like this contact solution, thaw back out, and they were still good as new. They were not good as new, but they still. I mean, I wear contacts for like a year at a time until they really are just on their last leg. But these ones, they still survive. They're just kind of a funny thing. Like it was brutal. It was a brutal night. But anyway, back down here at the hotel. The only reason this was the only hotel that was still open was because the National Guard was staying there at the time, and they were in town for some COVID stuff. And what they were doing in the hotel was, since there was, I think the power went out for a while, so they were going and taking buckets of the National Guard was going and taking buckets of water out of the pool and bringing it up to different floors so that people could use it to manually flush their toilets. I didn't have it. I mean, I could have maybe used the toilet, but I don't want to bother with that. I don't want to have to deal with anybody going in their room. So I actually went out to the van that was parked in the parking lot. I put a plastic bag in the toilet, and I used that, and then I just took it up out of there, walked down the street, and found a garbage can down the street and threw that away. It was kind of a goofy feeling walking down the street with a bag of your own shit in your hand. For some reason, it's even weirder. It's like, it's not dog shit. It's my own shit that I'm walking down the street with. But honestly, like, I was in the best place I could possibly be, though, downtown, staying at the hotel, because everywhere else was frozen and cold, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. So thank you, Tommy, for looking out and giving me a place to stay. It was really helpful. And it was funny because funny for me, they had to, rebook all the reservations for the wedding and all that. And I was just chilling on the bed watching Jumanji and just having a good time. And life was good for me when all this other, stressful reorganization needed to be done around me. But since the wedding was pushed back a week, I had to kill a week. And the bride's mom, she had some family that lived outside of town that I stayed with for the week. These two old dudes, I slept in a unicorn bed, a little girl unicorn bed, and I don't know, two really cool old Texan dudes. We had a great conversation. They're just old Texans, anti-government Republican dudes that were, we talked about culture, we talked about guns, we talked about finance, just old Republican stuff. And him and one of the guys specifically, we got along really well, and just ended up having good conversations and trying to but also conversations about the situation that we're in currently in the world. And this guy was really into finance, so he was really worried about where the country's going to be going in the future, and decided he had some plans of what shifts he's gonna make in his life to get out of town. But just kind of we talked mainly just about the confusion that goes around society right now, and how trapped so many people are in different types of thinking. And it was cool. He printed out this paper for me that was a quote of Mark Twain that I posted up in the van for the whole trip, and it kind of summed up our conversations pretty nicely. And the quote was, "It's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled." So that kind of sums up a lot of the conversations we were having. And I still have his contact, and we've had some interesting conversations and had some good back and forth. But in that week, I did spend a little bit of time. One of the guys took me over to their friend's house to do some work, and I just chilled over there and enjoyed some nice sights. Went for a couple good walks. Spent a little time around Lake Travis and did another hike over at the Pennybacker Bridge. Pretty nice viewpoints around there. But you're kind of still in the city. I mean, you're outside of the city. You're not in downtown Austin, but definitely a place I'd like to go back to. Is just, I mean, anywhere in the Austin area. San Antonio probably more for me, but it's still a nice spot down there in Texas. Everything is bigger. Even the roads are wider, man. It's great. So anyway, after killing the week over there, went back to the wedding. Had a really beautiful time at the wedding. Either they're good actors or it's real, because their love is real. Just watching them go through the ceremony together was really beautiful, and I was really happy to be a part of it and see some friends again and be a part of all the festivities. I mean, after the wedding, this was the main thing that I was waiting for, and we spent a couple more days. I had a couple good friends in town, Jarrett and Jess, and we went and Billy, and we went and spent some time downtown and got some stuff to eat. I ate some seafood a couple times, and yeah, just like I don't know. I like going to capitals, and I like going to the downtown and seeing this, because so many of our buildings and architecture nowadays is just cookie cutter, ugly, boring stuff. So if anything, going and seeing these like large government buildings that are built a long time ago, they're massive, beautiful buildings. I mean, it's a sight to be seen. Like, it gives me a little bit more pride in being an American, seeing like there's not just this boring, square, ugly glass metal buildings. Like, there is traditional architecture within it as well. I don't know. It definitely gives me a little bit more of appreciation and just seeing it. It's just some consumer, quick, modern, boring, cookie cutter culture that often seems like. But there's a lot more history to it that is nice to be around. It gives me a bit more of an appreciation for who we are. On my way out of town, I was pretty ready to get out of town though, because at this point in time I'd been in Texas for 2.5, 3 months or so, and I wanted to continue moving in the van. I wanted to continue moving faster. And at this point, after this point, I think I only stayed in any spot maybe like 3 or 4 days max. Other than that, I was continually moving all the way until I got back home. Like a day there, 2 days there, a day there, and moving quickly after this. So on my way out of Texas, I started to head in the direction of Louisiana and the southern states. I stopped off at one of the oldest continually open dance halls in Texas, called Gruene Hall, which is it was built in 1878. Apparently George Strait used to play there like once a month back in the day, and I don't know, it was cool going to this old town Texas vibe, and imagining being here back in the day with cowboy boots, cowboy hats, and flannels, and just people getting down on these creaky wooden floors, and someone jamming some country music up on stage. It was another interesting piece of culture, of American culture, to be around and just imagine what's going on here and what has gone on here in the past. I also had a good steak and a beer in the back, which was really nice. Closer to the border of Louisiana, getting out of town, I stopped at probably one of my favorite campsites I found along the way. Definitely one of my favorite in Texas, near Zavala, Texas, right along the Sam Rayburn Reservoir. I think it's called the Sandy Creek Boat Ramp, and the reason it was cool because it seemed like it was free, and it was a campsite that had been abandoned. I don't know how many years ago. A long time ago. It looked like things had just been dilapidated and fallen apart. There were leaves everywhere. You could tell that no one had been there for a while. It also kind of had this weird, creepy mob type of feel, because there was a spot. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, this deserted place, and then right on the edge of the water across from me is like this house that looks like a mob boss's house or a drug dealer's house. It's probably just some lawyer or something, but it definitely had this vibe of, I probably shouldn't stay here too long because they might not like it over there. I also did find a machete here randomly, just sitting on the just stabbed into the ground there, so I got a free machete out of it. Got that all sharpened up nice, and still have it actually back at home. I continued on from there, and I think that's when I made it out of Texas. Yeah, that's when I finally got out of Texas, and I was on to the next state. I passed through Pleasure Island, which I thought was a cool name, and in Pleasure Island, I finally used one of those old school gas pumps that has the numbers dialing back slowly, which I just never actually seen one in operation and used it, so that was kind of a cool old school thing to experience. On Also, let's see. Yeah, okay, so the last spot that I landed was Holly Beach, and Holly Beach is just near the Sabine Reservoir, wildlife reservoir, or it is just past the border into Louisiana. Stopped off and camped on the beach there for a night, raised a hat to Texas, and definitely did some reflection on my time there, and just enjoyed, look back and appreciated, like, Texas is a huge part of American culture, and a lot of people think about Texas when they think of American culture. I think the cowboys and whatnot, and it was cool to be able to spend a lot of time there and kind of get a feel for these different major cities, a few of the major cities, San Antonio and Austin, Corpus Christi, and these sort of areas. It was nice to be able to spend some time around these areas and get a feel for what Texas is actually like to a degree. I definitely went outside of the main cities also and tried to get a feel for it. It was really nice being able to meet some of the local people and get involved with these two old Texans, especially that had been there, and they brought me around their friends, and these old Texans that had been there their whole life and had amazing stories and cool perspectives that were some hardcore dudes, actually, some of them. Yeah, so the next episode, I'm going to be picking up, continuing along through the southern states. I moved through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama pretty quick. Good amount of time in Florida, just passing through just because it's the corner state of the country, and going all the way along the border, all the way down to Key West. And that's going to be where I'm working to next. Other than that, another reason I started this whole thing was just because I want to interact with people. I want to have interesting conversations, and I don't really want to talk about myself all the time, even though that's the whole point of this is I'm talking about my story, but I don't really want to talk about myself. I don't like being the center of attention. So ask a question. Just please, not many people even make it this far in the video. If you're still listening, like, this is, my analytics tell me that it's rare that anyone even makes it this far. Maybe it's my family, my mom and my dad, maybe. But just ask a simple question. It could be about anything. It can be about travel. I lived in a van, traveled in a year, I've hitchhiked for extended periods of time, a backpack for months. If there's any questions about that, if you want to ask about music or relationships or conspiracies or candy bars or whatever it is, I don't care. Just ask some sort of question. Let's get the conversation started. Maybe you can try to get me canceled. Maybe you can try to expose my racism or my misogyny or something. Make it something spicy, baby. We'll see how it goes. Because again, I don't really want to talk about. I want to talk about something actually interesting, not me, and I don't really want to talk about the past as much anymore. Even though I'm continuing to work through this, I want to talk about other things as well. Talk about what's going on in the present and what's going on in the world a little bit. That's what I spend a lot of time paying attention to. So, if you got any questions, it's simple. Just leave it underneath. Leave a comment if you would. Other than that, yeah. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Give it a subscribe if you like. All right, a like if you subscribe. Or wait a minute, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening, you guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.